Emily Jashinsky, a colleague of mine at The Federalist, the culture editor at The Federalist, has written what I think is really an exceptional piece on China's influence on Hollywood. So first, Emily, I want to welcome you to the show, and then let's dive right into your article.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Good to be here.
Well, thanks again for writing this piece. And I was really surprised to see Judd Apatow coming out as one of the good guys. So what did he have to say about Hollywood and China?
Yeah, it's an interesting point about Judd Apatow, because right as I started working on this article, the New Yorker's very long dive into, some of China's soft power stuff, kind of the broader battle between the United States and China in terms of soft power issues that's mounting right now, came out like the morning that I started writing this. And I saw Judd Apatow's comment and thought it was unusually brazen, because this is a conversation, and I have this in the article itself. A source of mine, Chris Fenton, for the article, is kind of an industry insider, said, this is a conversation that Hollywood is having, but it's happening behind closed doors right now, and they want to keep it that way. That's a quote from the article. And so to see Judd Apatow come out and say what he said, which is essentially that, what you don't hear about are all of the ideas that are left on the cutting room floor before these scripts even get written, because the studios don't want to deal with what happens when they take them even further, or any further along in the filmmaking process, which could include a lot of different consequences. Those are the ideas that should really scare us, is that the movies that aren't getting made, the ideas that aren't getting incorporated into scripts, because the studios are intimidated by the prospect of being blackballed by China, of being censored by China, or frankly, of just not having their film shown in China in the first place. So Apatow was speaking to that issue, and to see someone of his stature in Hollywood, he's not only a really prominent director, producer, but he's a celebrity in his own right. And so to see him say that was really, really, really interesting to me. I included it right at the top of my article because I think it's one of those signals that this battle is ratcheting up. Because, if you look at someone like Richard Gere, the career arc of Richard Gere is a major part of America's sort of soft power story in terms of Hollywood and China. Richard Gere spoke out in favor of Tibet years and years ago, and his career has suffered dramatically as a result. And so to see that coming from Apatow, I think, is a sign that maybe some industry leaders in Hollywood are emboldened to start speaking out against China. And I think really the sad saga of the Uyghurs, the way that's played out in the media, I would say in like the last 6 months or so, might be a big part of that.
Yeah, I wonder, as I think about this, and if you look at what the left has done in America in terms of forcing people into self-censorship, and that's through cancel culture and a whole host of other elements in the corporate world and beyond. We talked a little bit in yesterday's episode even about how financial services companies are trying to force companies that they invest in or that their investors invest in to bend to their sort of social justice warrior agenda. And you talk about comedians, for example, here, like Jerry Seinfeld and Chris Rock and many others who have complained about the political correctness. Do you see an analogy in this supposedly creative industry where they self-censor in the basis of trying to not offend social justice warriors here, but then they also self-censor to not offend really anti-social justice warriors from China at the same time? And these are supposed to be our greatest creative minds.
Well, there's a hugely important point to be made here, and it's like when you look at what happened with Georgia. So Georgia is one of those states that offers major tax incentives for film production. So a lot of movies get made in Georgia, a lot of TV shows are filmed in Georgia. And when Georgia passed a pro-life piece of legislation last year that Hollywood took issue with, they were aghast, right? And they suddenly were saying, we're going to pull all of our business out of Georgia. Well, that's particularly rich coming from the same industry that self-censors to make money off of the Chinese film market. It's just like laughable that they've sort of styled themselves as these champions of art and free speech, and yet they're so deferential to China while also being so politically correct and so just like hive-mindedly progressive domestically. It really is laughable.